gentlemen, welcome back to the Straight Talk podcast. This is episode 48. On this episode, we're going to be talking some NBA talk once again. It's been like one or two episodes since we talked about that. I'm your host, SESvince. Joining me is my co-host. Good to meet you, Bosh. How you
I
doing?
was waiting for that. Now that we've met, it's good to be back.
Oh man, that was so funny because like last time we pod together it was like what was it like 46 I think it was,
Yeah.
and you just introduced yourself and you're just like good to meet you. I'm like,
Yeah, I listened back to that episode later. And I was like, did I just say nice to meet you? Like, what the fuck?
anyways, you can find us wherever podcasts can be found. Search up SES Vince in your favorite podcast player, platform, whatever, and you'll find the podcast very quickly. You can also follow us on youtube.com/SES Vince. Hit the bell notification, subscribe. And I say subscribe and follow and like and all that good stuff because we might be changing the handles to stuff. So we'll keep you updated to that going forward. But yeah, just search up SES Events for everything. Search up Straight Talk. You'll find the stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Now, Bosh, it's been a minute since we last talked. The
Yeah, a
NBA
lot has happened,
Finals,
man. A
the
lot has
NBA
happened.
Finals wrapped up. The NBA Draft concluded, and we had a few trades. Free agency is this Friday. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's taking place 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Central Standard Time.
I think it's 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday evening, and
Hmm.
that'll kick off the time when free agent negotiations can begin.
Yes.
Obviously, as pretty much everyone knows, most of the negotiations are probably already done. And then at that point, even technically, that's a moratorium period. So they're allowing, you know, teams to talk to players and free agents and make deals, but they can't officially be signed for another week.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's all like the fine print, right? In reality, like it's going to be what decides free agency
Yeah.
deals starting right
Yeah.
away on Friday.
Contracts can't officially be signed until July 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. This moratorium period can be kind of wild. We've had free agency periods in the past where players are held hostage with a chair at the door in LA, trying to make sure they don't sign with Dallas. Shout out to
Yeah, that
DeAndre
was
Jordan.
there have been hostages held literally, then there have been figurative hostages because there's been like one big free agent who's kind of delaying his decision like LeBron back in what was it 2019 or whatever,
Yeah,
and or KD, and then everything else is on hold until they make their decision because no team is gonna make a move until they know for sure they can or can't get that person. So I don't think there's not like that sort of free agent, and I don't anticipate any literal hostage
no,
situations this time either. So
I highly doubt it. I would hope not, right?
I
Um,
don't know. I kind of would hope so. It does make it more interesting. It was pretty fun to follow along on where Daryl Morey was and who was inside DeAndre Jordan's house, holding the door locked, and what was going on.
what
That was a
was
fun
funny
time.
about that whole scenario is that I think it was Woj that tweeted that Mark Cuban is driving down the
Yeah, he
streets
was trying to find his
of
house.
and trying to find his house, driving down the streets. I think it was of LA, calling everyone. Was like,
No, it
"What's
was, it
DeAndre?"
was in Texas, I think.
Oh, in
Actually,
Texas.
I think so. I could be wrong, but I think it was in
That
Texas.
was just so funny because in my mind, I'm just picturing Mark Cuban in his car, just driving like a madman on the phone, trying to get a hold of DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. But speaking of DeAndre Jordan, he was part of the 2023 NBA champion Denver Nuggets. He didn't do a lick
No, let's
for
give it up,
them.
man, for them Denver Nuggets,
Shout
bro.
out to the Denver Nuggets. They beat the Miami Heat in six. You know
A
what?
well-deserved champion,
Well
Jokic
deserved.
establishing his mark, finally putting all those questions to bed about whether a team led by an offensive center like Jokic could win the championship, and all those, how good is he really, and all those questions. He was dominant throughout. He was the best player through the playoffs, and
Hmm.
awesome to watch. And it's great that, more people got exposed to just what a great talent he is, and what a fun game he plays.
Oh yes, it's a fun form of basketball. I thoroughly enjoyed everything that I saw in the playoffs with the Denver Nuggets as well. Every single time I counted them out, they proved me wrong every single time there. That's why when we got to the NBA Finals, at that point, like it's kind of hard to like bet against them. I think at this point, Nikola Jokic has solidified himself as a top 10 best center of all time and is continuing to climb.
Yeah, he's in the conversation there. He's going to be mentioned now. People are going to obviously, I think Hakeem and Kareem and Wilt, they're in there, and then people are going to talk about the Shaq Jokic debates are going to go on. Depends on how Jokic's career plays out. If he's good for a longer period of time, because Shaq's like dominant period it was a little it was pretty long, but it was cut a little bit short by Shaq's like kind of inattentiveness to staying in shape or being ready for the start of seasons and that sort of thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun, and he's legitimately whatever his all-time ranks are, he's still only in his mid 20s, late 20s. So he's got a long way to go. I think right now you can say is like he definitely solidified himself as one of the best players in the NBA for sure, no questions, no playoff questions, no can he bring it, can he lead a team, all that put to bed.
No, 100%. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Shout out to Jokic. Shout out to Jamal Murray. Shout out to the Denver Nuggets.
Man, Jamal Murray, man, how clutch, like through the entire playoffs, he stepped up time and time and time again. He had a couple off nights and that was it. And even on one of the off nights, I think he like turned it around in the second half. It was really cool. My only regret there is I went back because we were prepping some pods earlier in the month, and I was like, oh, can I clip some audio of where because I definitely picked Denver to win the NBA Finals at the start of the playoffs. And then I realized we never recorded that pod, man, because that was the one during the play-in games. And I'm like, oh, I never made my prediction on the pod before the playoffs that Denver was going to win it all. So I got nothing to point at. Now I'm just another
Yeah,
person.
you don't have any proof.
I thought I could
Yeah.
have solidified my cred there, but nah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm your alibi. You said it to me. You had Denver winning the championship. We power ranked who we thought were gonna win it, obviously.
Yeah,
Um, shout out to Aaron Gordon too.
dude.
Got a championship for the dunk contest trophy he was supposed to win.
Yeah, well, he found his place in the NBA, which is really cool because for a long time everybody was questioning, Aaron Gordon's not a primary. If he could just be Draymond, if he could be this, if he could be that, and he found a spot in Denver, man, where he was able to fit his game in, and just really, you know, have a team that the things that Aaron Gordon brought to the table skill wise
Mhm.
really fit in Denver perfectly.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
so many times he was the recipient of cuts to the basket and getting wide open drives to the rim, or just being there for putbacks because unfortunately the Miami Heat didn't have the rebounding help that they needed on the defensive glass. But you know what? Shout out and kudos to Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, everyone in that organization on that team. The second 8 seed in NBA history to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. Kudos to them.
yeah.
Kudos to
Kudos to
them.
the Heat. They were awesome.
And they did
Uh,
that without Tyler Hero, who they're shopping around this free agents this offseason. They could add more pieces to this team,
yeah,
assuming they don't lose Gabe Vincent and Max Strus.
yeah. Two guys. Definitely, Strus is going to be highly sought after. Vincent will probably be looked at as well. So we'll get to that in some of our free agency talk, and when we talk about who possible targets are for teams around the league, and as well as for our Chicago Bulls here,
Yeah.
hometown team.
Speaking of roster movement and transactions, we had a few big moves. One that I feel like surprised almost everyone in the NBA world, including us fans and media and players alike. And we're going to kick things off there in terms of our transaction. And that's the big one. That is the Phoenix Suns trading for Bradley Beal, um, and the Washington Wizards sending over Chris Paul in return. The details of the trade are as follows: the Suns receive Bradley Beal, Isaiah Todd, Jordan Goodwin, while the Wizards receive Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, cash considerations, first round pick swaps, not actual picks, pick swaps in 2024, 2026, 2028, and 2030. Aside from that, they also get second round picks in 2024, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 30.
Basically,
So,
every second round pick and pick swap that the Suns could possibly trade. They didn't
yes.
have any first round picks because they traded them all to get Kevin Durant in the first place. So yeah, they it's a pretty minimal haul when you look at it for somebody of Bradley Beal's caliber
Mhm.
offensively. Um, Pretty similar to like Zach LaVine, except that Bradley Beal's in a supermax contract and had a no trade clause, so that
Yes.
limited his market. And if you look at the pick swaps, well, 2024 is, the next season. It's unlikely that,
Now it's
not
yeah
just unlikely, it's like nearly impossible for Phoenix to be lower in the
in the standings.
standings,
Yeah.
meaning with a higher draft position than Washington. So that pick swap is relatively meaningless unless like complete disaster happens in Phoenix.
Hmm.
So the 2024 pick swap, you had to get it because just in case, it's one of the only things Phoenix could give you if you're Washington, but it's meaningless. 2026 is probably also meaningless. I mean, it's highly unlikely, even if KD he completely ages out and Beal, they trade him, and it's still unlikely because the Suns still have more young talent than the Wizards do on the roster. For them within 3 years to be worse than Washington is very unlikely. So that 2026 pick swap is also, kind of not much, pretty much a nothing
Non-existent.
consider. Yeah, non-existent. Exactly. It's 28 is slightly possible. The one that really you look at as Washington probably getting some good value on is 2030. That's
Yes.
7 years out. By that point, you think Washington may have possibly rebuilt the team. Phoenix will definitely have had several superstars age out, and depending on how things go, that could be a valuable pick for Washington.
100%. It's just really going to determine as to how bad and how fast they are that bad. The Washington Wizards are. They're going to be dubbed the Washington Generals for the next few seasons until they strike on the lottery pick in the top of the draft.
Yeah,
That's my main thing. So initially, when I first heard this trade, my immediate reaction was, "What the fuck? This makes no sense for either
it
team."
was such a terrible. I mean, when you look at it, you're like, I laughed. I think it was on Twitter. I think you may have seen. I literally laughed at like the report. I was like, is fucking Phoenix serious with this offer? Fucking Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and pick swaps and second round picks. Like this is laughable. But Beal controlled his destiny because he could veto any trade. He could veto a trade even if he didn't like the package Phoenix was giving up. If he thought Phoenix was giving up too much, he
Hmm.
could veto that too. Like say
Yeah,
if Phoenix had decided to offer DeAndre Ayton and Beal was like, "Nah, I want to keep him there. I don't want to go," he could just veto that trade. So, you know,
and
Washington really screwed themselves with that.
they did 100%. And I wanna emphasize here that I in no way, shape, or form like scrutinize or judge or criticize or condemn Bradley Beal. This
No, of
man
course, yeah.
went out and got the biggest contract he could possibly get, not once, but twice, or maybe even three times while a member of the Washington Wizards. He waited out until he can get the biggest supermax contract he possibly could. He somehow finessed a no trade clause in there, meaning that not only was he going to get paid, but he's going to be able to get traded to whatever team he wanted to. Apparently, the contenders were Miami or Phoenix. He ended up choosing Phoenix. I guess Kevin Durant was doing some recruiting there. My personal opinion on this and the fault kind of goes to the Washington Wizards for even giving him the no trade clause.
Yeah, it's completely their fault. He was the only
Completely
player in
their
the NBA
fault.
with a no trade clause. Even Steph
Exactly. I
Curry
didn't.
didn't get one.
It wasn't even about the money. I didn't even care about the money because it's like whatever, like players are
Like
gonna get
Washington, you're right, because Washington could say, okay, we're going to give you the supermax so you don't leave. We want to keep you. You're a franchise legend. We have no way to replace you, and we don't want to tank at that time for some reason. Even though Victor Wembanyama was coming up, but whatever. Past decisions. The money's fine, but if you're giving him the most money he could possibly get, you didn't need to include the no trade clause. He couldn't get close to that contract from anyone else. Like they could.
exactly.
Again, Golden State made sure Steph Curry didn't get one because and so he didn't have a no trade clause.
And I will say that the current Washington regime isn't the same regime that gave him that contract.
Right.
So I will say
Except for the
that.
ownership. The owner is the same, and you would think that
Yes.
it's probably his, ultimate decision that they keep Beal no matter what. That dictated that
Yeah.
the previous front office give him that contract. I would think the owner bears some culpability there. Ted
Yeah.
Leonsis.
So let's look at things for the Phoenix Suns perspective first, and how this impacts their team and their structure going forward, and how we feel about it before we address the Wizards, because they made two more trades. The Washington Wizards were on a fire sale. They were very busy
Yeah.
the last week in the NBA world.
Well, it's kind of
So
what you should do, right? If you trade your main guy, then all right, then what's the like tear it down, like get
yeah.
everything you can from everyone else. So
So, like I said, they got Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd as the salary fillers, or just throwing guys. But the main crux here is Bradley Beal. That's what we'll focus on. So now their team kind of looks like Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, and campaign
campaign, and then I believe they still have
Josh Okogie and TJ Warren, maybe.
the TJ Warren's contract was up. That's why Brooklyn couldn't keep him. They didn't have bird rights on him because he signed like a 1 year deal.
Hmm.
So if you don't have bird rights, you can't exceed the salary cap to re-sign that player. I think the Suns will be in the same mix, but they do have Prince, I believe, right?
Um,
I keep wanting to say Tayshaun. It's not Tayshaun. That's from a previous era of the
it's
NBA.
not Torian Prince either.
Torian Prince. Don't they have
No, no,
Torian
because
Prince?
I think it wasn't he with Minnesota.
That was before. I believe he should be a let me I'll double check this while you go
Are
ahead
you
and
thinking Torrey Craig?
oh, thank you. That is who I'm thinking of. Torrey Craig. Thank you.
No, he's off their books too.
Is
So
he? Okay.
currently they have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Bradley Beal. Cameron Payne is not it's not fully guaranteed, but they're gonna have to bring him back for his six and a half million. And then
Yeah.
aside from that is Ish Wai, right? There's no one left on this team.
Yeah. I guess they'll still have Landale and or Bismack. They'll have one of those two at least. They should have Biombo.
Jock
But yeah,
Land.
basically Jock Landale or Bismack Biombo. Basically end of the bench guys, really not worth like their main team is what you said in the beginning, which is
Mhm.
Beal, Booker, KD, Aiton, Campaign, Josh Kogi. And I do think like if they should be able to re-sign Torrey Craig with bird rights, and I imagine they will.
I if Well, they can't get Shaman because he was part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
So Torrey Craig is who I target. Damian Lee, try to bring back Damian Lee. Josh Okogie, I thought was played well for them. Londale. I think Terrence Ross is gone for sure. Um, this is going to be a team that's going to have a bunch of like veteran NBA players coming to them for the vet minimum. I can
And
see
a new
that being the
coach.
case. New coach as well. And obviously, I think the writing's on the wall. I think DeAndre Ayton is going to get traded at some point. If he doesn't get traded by the end of the offseason, he's definitely gone by the trade deadline, because they need to trade him so they're able to go ahead and like spread out that salary, because it's 32 mil. Like it's going to be almost 32 and a half.
So if we're looking at it, we went from a team that was, at the beginning of this year, a team with a deep roster, a mix of veterans, of like, later career veterans like Chris Paul, in their prime vets, like Booker and Aiton and Mikal Bridges, or young players like Cam Johnson. Um, and now you've got this basically very, very top heavy team where it's not even your entire starting lineup, but 4 of your 5 of the starting lineup are very set. And then next to nothing after that, right? So this is like the ultimate test of, can you just get the most offensive talent you could possibly get and then just fill in the roster around them to,
It's gonna
to
be
make a
tough,
complete
man.
NBA
It's gonna
team.
be tough. They're gonna have to rely on similar to what the Lakers did this past season. Try to find guys for like vet minimum deals. Guys like Troy Brown Jr. and like end of the bench guys for other teams, and then they're part of your key rotation.
Right.
And I don't know. I thought all they really had to do is just have one good, solid, healthy off season, bring back some of their guys that they had. They just needed to add more depth, like
Yeah.
some more defense, some more 3-point shooting. I thought they were set. I thought they were a more well-rounded team. This has the higher ceiling, but it's
Yeah,
also
like I kind of see like this deal as something you had to do because look at what they gave up is nothing. Because and not to say Chris Paul is nothing, but Chris Paul is 38,
yes.
can't play really more than 20 minutes a game anymore, is really redundant on a team that has ball handlers who are like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker already, because Chris Paul is a pick and roll point guard. He sets up an offense, he puts players where he wants them to be, and then he configures his way and looks at the defense and gets players shots. You got shot makers who get their own shots with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So he was really redundant. He hasn't been healthy in the playoffs for several years now. And so to give him, and by the way, let's not forget, he had a $30 million contract that,
Yes.
if, that's a lot of money. And then he's got another year after that. I think that's non guaranteed next year.
Mhm.
Either way, 30 mil on the books this year. And they managed to flip that for a still, in his later prime, but still technically in his prime, Bradley Beal. You kind of had to, like, you cut 7 years, because I think Beal's about what, 31, and
Yeah.
Chris Paul's 38, and Beal is healthy now, and Beal is, and again, you didn't need Chris Paul to set up Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. Now you just have Bradley Beal. You're just betting it all that our top offensive talent. It's kind of like Brooklyn 2 years ago when
Mhm.
they had Harden, KD, and Kyrie, and just saying we're going to have the best offense of all time, and we'll figure out the rest later.
My whole issue, and I feel like the difference between that Brooklyn Big Three versus this Phoenix Big Three is my big question is who's the point guard on this team? Because I know that the easy answer for me would be Devin Booker because he played point guard for such a long stretch of time in Phoenix up until they actually got Chris Paul there. But we saw that in the past. He's not as his best when he's the point guard initiating the offense, setting other players up. He's better just playing that Steph Curry, Clay Thompson role where he's playing off the ball. And yeah, he does get some isolation touches, but he's better just being a threat from the perimeter. My whole issue is, like I said, with Brooklyn, James Harden obviously is the point guard, but also Kyrie Irving can handle the point guard responsibilities.
Right.
Bradley Beal and Devin Booker just feel too much of a similar player.
I think in this,
They're not even like good defenders. I feel like they're gonna be torched in the perimeter.
Booker's a better defender now than he was previously in his career.
Yes.
A much better defender. Beal in the past, and I mean distant past, when the Wizards were actual, and maybe not
Contenders.
championship contenders, but Eastern Conference contenders. You know, him and John Wall, when they were a duo that was still able to make like the Eastern Conference Finals and stuff like that, second round in a couple of years. Beal was a better defender. So you're kind of hoping that, hey, Bradley Beal was not going to put forth the effort on defense for a at the best play-in team like Washington has been for the past few years, and that was at their best, a sub 500 play-in level team,
Hmm.
and that especially when they were even lower in the standings, like why would he go all out and play defense? And he was just like ignoring that side of the floor. And so Phoenix's
Yeah.
hope here has got to be that Beal can still play defense at the level he used to play it at 4 or 5 years ago.
I don't know. My big question is Devin Booker your point guard and then Bradley Beal's your new two guard,
Yeah, I
or
think
are
I
they your wing players and then you have campaign
they
as your
may have
starting point?
campaign bring the ball up, but I think their best lineup is not going to have campaign on the floor because again, you don't need campaign with these three players, and you're just going to have whichever one of these three, wants to bring the ball up the floor, bring it up the floor, because you don't need a traditional point guard when you've got shot creators in three different spots in your lineup, which is what you have. Neither Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, nor Kevin Durant need a point guard to get them the ball. If you've got all three of them out there, and you can have any two of them on the floor for the entire game. If one sits, you should be able to rotate it so two are always on the floor. Then you
Hmm.
don't need a point guard, and that's probably what they're going to go with. If any of them miss time, then you slot in campaign to be the point guard. And I understand that. And you've got now their coach is Frank Vogel, who we haven't mentioned yet, who won a championship with LA, took the Indiana Pacers before that to multiple Eastern Conference
Right.
finals against LeBron. And so he's coached different types of teams. He's coached superstars. And you think he's going to find a way to craft a workable defense and kind of keep these stars on the same page and everybody focused towards the same goal. I'm with you. I don't love the configuration of the team. I'm just trying to say from their perspective, like what are they going to do now that they've done the Kevin Durant trade and right after that they basically committed to this
Right.
line of thinking. So I think that's what they're going to be hoping for. I think it'll be fun to watch. It'll be interesting,
Hmm.
and I don't
It's
think
gonna
that
be must see TV for sure.
yeah, I don't think they're going to crash and burn. I don't know how good they're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're so thin that uh, it's going to depend on how much like you don't want to ride these guys through the regular season, right? Like
No.
you want to kind of let them, you know, not coast, but not have to do so much work in the regular season. And that's going to be interesting to see if they can figure out a way to do that. You don't want them to be having to play all out just to be a top 4 seed, at the end of the
Yeah.
year.
So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what this team looks like as the season progresses. But then also, I think the big problem now, once this trade is done, it's official, it's good to go. Now, if I'm the Phoenix Suns, I'm on the phone trying to trade DeAndre
Well, they certainly have been, and
Aiden.
there's a couple of reported offers where I was like, "Whoa!" The receiving team like really buying low on Aiton. I think there was an offer that I heard about with Dallas where there were um, Phoenix was supposedly offering up Aiton, and essentially Dallas would get to dump. I think it was the Bertans contract,
Hmm.
and as well as give them one or two other players, and they'd be able to. I don't know. I would have done that if I was Dallas, but. Um, they're going to try. I think DeAndre Ayton's still a good player, but you're right. Like he's also an offensive player who works out of the kind of mid post. All
Yeah.
three of these guys like to take a lot of mid range jumpers, even though all three of them can stretch it to the 3 point line. They work really well and really comfortable in the mid range. So Ayton's offensive talent is redundant with them as well. And you kind of wonder, like, when they made their finals run a few years ago, when they lost to Giannis and the Bucks in the finals, DeAndre Ayton had really committed to, getting those sort of putbacks and kind of offensive rebounding and, focusing on his defense and defending guys like Jokic really well. And it seems like that was all he had. He's kind of sick of that, and he wants to go back to being a featured player. So that's going to be because if he commits to what he was in that run, then yeah, Phoenix should keep him and they'll do really well. But if he's really sick of that and doesn't want to do that anymore, then I guess you do have to move him. But it's weird because since he's got that $100 million contract, um, his value in the league is a little bit lower because he's not perceived to be worth that contract based on his offensive and defensive production.
Yeah, honestly, like, because here's the thing: he was having an issue being the third wheel with Phoenix
Yeah.
when when they had Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Then he was still the third wheel with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker there.
And now he's fourth. Yeah.
Now he's fourth. I don't think he's going to be happy. Look, I know they got rid of Monty Williams, who was the biggest naysayer in the DeAndre Aiden camp, but if you're able to replace him with a different center, maybe one that isn't as good as DeAndre Aiden, but maybe it's going to be able to like fit in and not complain and be okay with his role. Someone like, let's say, like a Brooke Lopez, right? I'm not saying that's who they target, but like a Brooke Lopez, Jonas Valanciunas, those kind of guys that are going to be okay playing those roles. I don't know. Maybe you strike up a trade with even Portland. Like, let's say you take Yusuf Nurkic back and something else to make the money work, and then you add some depth to the Phoenix Suns roster. I don't think that actually is. These are realistic possibilities. I'm not. I'm
I mean
just
that's
throwing names
a
out there.
possibility, the Portland one, because it's a way for Portland to upgrade and a way for Phoenix to still get something. But yeah, like you said, they're definitely going to shop him, and it doesn't seem like he's got like a landing spot that really fits him or that would both, be able to take him and also want to take him, in
Right.
terms of either what you have to match in terms of salary and trade and roster spots. Like for teams that could trade for him, there's only a certain number of teams that could, and the teams that would want to are not those same teams usually,
Yeah.
from what I'm looking at.
I
So
know. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to, like, if they could just turn, even if it's not another center, if they could just turn DeAndre Ayton into at least two other solid rotation guys. That's all they honestly
well, the
need.
other part of that is everybody in the league knows that they want to and need to do that. So they're all going to squeeze them. If Phoenix is on the phone with you, you know that they have to, do this and they want to do this. So
There's incompetent organizations out there. Like the Kings no longer fit in that like bubble anymore. But I'm sure there will be other teams that will be willing to go and do something of that sort. But let's move on to Washington's perspective, and we'll actually bypass from this trade onto their next trade that they used Chris Paul, because they immediately shipped him out. He's not actually going to stay with Washington because the options was either buy him out or just trade him again. They chose to trade him. We already covered the draft compensation. Sorry to Landry Shamet fans, but I don't think he's going to be a needle mover for Washington. Moving on, and this is another one that surprised me, is the Washington Wizards ended up sending Chris Paul to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, who I didn't even knew it was the thing. Initially, I thought this said Ryan Hollins, and I was surprised that he was still in the league. They got a 2027 second round pick and a 2030 first round pick with some protections. So if you look at everything they got in return for Bradley Beal, they got Landry Shamet, cash considerations, first round pick swaps in 24, 26, 28, and 30, second round picks in 24, 27, 26, 20, 25, 28, and 30, as well as Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, 2027 second round pick via Golden State, and the 2030 first round pick. So if you add everything included in the separate trade, the Bradley Beal trade looks like, okay, well, they got more than what what we thought they initially got, because if I'm not mistaken, the big front runners was like, okay, we'll trade him to Miami and you'll get like Tyler Hero as the centerpiece of that trade as well. If not, I think what were the other options?
Lakers, Clippers.
No, not the Lakers. What other? I'm thinking about another team that had a.
Well,
Oh,
the Clippers were going to send, like reportedly, they were looking at like whichever Morris brother they have left. I forget which Morris twin they have, Markeith, I think.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
Markeith, and then the Chicagoan who they got, the wing defender whose name is I'm forgetting, originally a Philly 76er,
yeah, I'm drawing a
Robert
blank.
Covington. So they were
Robert.
going to send Covington, Morris, and like second rounders or something, and then try to
Yeah.
pick up Chris Paul.
So if you look, I honestly thought the best trade package they could have gotten was that 18th pick for Miami plus Tyler Hero and some other pieces. And I mean, I'm not saying Jordan Poole is just as good, but Jordan Poole is going to be chucking it up
Well,
over
this
there
this is the trade
in
that makes the
Washington.
Beal trade more worth it now, right? Because this is
Hmm.
what, like you said, it completes the Beal trade, and because this is part of it, because they got Chris Paul in order to flip him, not to keep him. So this is what's completing the Bradley Beal trade to Phoenix, and so now you see that it's kind of worth it, because you were talking about everything they got. Let's be real. The real things they got are a 28 pick swap and a 30 pick swap with Phoenix, five
Hmm.
second round picks, and then this package, which includes a 2030 first round pick from slightly protected first round pick from Golden State, and a second rounder in Jordan Poole. So that's their real package. They have two somewhat real pick swaps from Phoenix 6 and 8 years down the road,
Hmm.
a bunch of second round picks, Jordan Poole, and then a pick from the Warriors 7 years down the road. And
Yeah.
that makes it more worthwhile. Like, okay, now you can realistically say we should have a couple of first round picks out of this at least, plus a slew of second rounders. And we've got a young player in Jordan Poole who's got a big contract. He was already extended. He makes 30 mil a year. He's got a 4-year, $120 million contract. And this is it's buying low on his value because he had a bad year and especially a bad playoffs. His year was okay. It's this playoffs really that hurt dinged
Hmm.
Jordan Poole's value as a kind of turnstile on defense whose shooting was uh, let's say not the best shot quality and kind of inconsistent. And he'd performed in the playoffs the year before, so you're thinking, hey, this is a young guy who maybe he'll get to run wild a little bit now, and he'll find a better shot selection, become more efficient, hopefully turn the ball over less, and maybe become less of a turnstile on defense. And he'll grow with our young team now. And it's not going to hurt. You can let Jordan Poole run wild and lose you games, and it's only going to help you
Yeah,
because you want a better draft pick as
exactly,
Washington.
100%. I'll make a perfect comparison. It's kind of like Jordan Clarkson when he was traded over to Utah
Oh yeah, yeah,
and then he's just kind of like the chucker, but then he ended up becoming like the veteran presence for that team, and he kind of like fits a role with them now that
yeah.
they're like,
Eventually, he found his place and stopped just checking up shots. I mean, I don't know if he stopped, but at least he chucked up slightly fewer shots
yeah,
and found his
exactly,
role on the team, right?
100%. You never know. Jordan Poole isn't a bad player to receive, so
Yeah.
I mean they got something. They
I
got a
mean, the
better
dude did
package.
perform on a championship winning team in the playoffs just a year
Yes,
ago,
exactly.
right? So,
So let's turn things over to the Golden State side of things, and this one was very much perplexing for me because I'm just like, he's Chris Paul's going to the Golden State Warriors. He's got to come off the bench, right? I doubt they'll start him in the backcourt with Curry and
dude, it's
have.
Steve Kerr and Golden State. They're going to start him. They're going to just be
They're
like out of
not starting
respect.
him,
They're
man.
going to
I don't
start
think
him,
they
dude.
will.
They're going to start him. We should put some odds on this one. They're going to start him. I'm not going to say they're going to start him all year. Maybe at some point they can change his mind and have him come off the bench. They're definitely going to start him, but I think they'll pull him early. Have him play like a 4 or 5 minute stint in the first quarter.
Hmm.
Then they'll pull him and have him come back in with the bench units once Steph goes to sit.
I think he's gonna be what they had in Sean Livingston slash Andre Iguodala, a guy that comes off the bench that could close out games for them depending on the lineup and the matchup against them in that particular night in that particular series.
As much as I love Sean Livingston, and I fucking love Sean Livingston, uh, neither Sean Livingston nor Andre Iguodala were ever considered the best point guard of their generation, and that's why they're not going to sit. They're not going to, bring Chris Paul off the bench.
So the starting lineup would be what?
It's
Curry, Paul, Clay, Wiggins, and Draymond. So everyone, like the Denver Nuggets, just beat them with size, and then decide, nah, let's get smaller here. That's that'll show
I'm
them.
not saying I agree with it. I just think they're going to start him. I'm with you. They should bring him off the bench. Maybe Chris Paul will come up to them and say like, "Yeah, oh, man, this doesn't make sense. I'll come off the bench. I'll save you the decision." But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're
Mhm.
going to start him.
I think if you want to get the most out of Chris Paul in these like last tender years of his career in this contract, you have him come off the bench as a six man. Look, if Derrick Rose can come off the bench as a six man, and other players can come off the bench as a six man, if Russell Westbrook can come off the bench as a six man, Chris Paul's got to be able to do it when
I
you're
agree
backing
with you.
up
I
Steph
hope you're
Curry.
right because that would be an ugly lineup to start games. I don't think the fit is so weird. Golden State is a team that does not really run a lot of pick and roll in the way that Chris Paul likes it. High pick and roll generally. They run a lot of side pick and roll with Steph and Draymond and Clay. That's designed to open Steph up for shots or get Draymond rolling to the basket. That's also
Mhm.
supposed to free up like secondary shooters. So I mean, Chris Paul's a very smart player. I'm sure he'll adapt to running, Golden State style. It's just a weird fit. He's not. He's 38. He's not. He's never been particularly quick. So
Yeah.
he's a slow, deliberate point guard who likes to set people in their spots. But again, he's a smart player. Maybe they'll figure it out. Like you said, I agree with you 100%. You bring him off the bench, and it's the best lineup. That's how you want him to be the ball handler as soon as Steph Curry goes to the bench, or even moving Steph off the ball. If it's Clay going to the bench,
Hmm.
that's your best lineup. Uh, So it's just going to be interesting because he doesn't really fit like Golden State style,
No,
technically.
because Golden State likes that whole motion offense, like dribble handoffs and
Yeah.
just moving without the ball, and that's not Chris Paul's game.
Draymond is really their second point guard, right? I mean,
Honestly, that's yeah, he might be their main point guard.
uh
If they bring him back, that's a conversation for another day.
yeah.
So I think he's just gonna serve the Jordan Poole role, man. I think because Jordan Poole, what they had was essentially a 3 guard lineup.
Yeah.
Was the 3 guard main rotation with
Yeah,
Poole,
they have a
Curry,
Jordan
and Clay.
Poole now who doesn't turn the ball over like Jordan Poole, and who, is not a chucker like Jordan Poole, and who will find other players for their shots,
Yeah,
right? That's the big
exactly.
benefit.
So I can see them do lineups where they actually have Paul and Curry on the floor, and this will allow Curry to play more off the ball, which would make him a very deadly threat. I often say that Curry is probably the most dangerous player without the ball because if he
Oh, he's
has someone to,
definitely, yeah.
if not him, Kevin Durant for sure. So I mean, it has possibilities. I will say this one is a little less clunky than the Phoenix trade, but I think both are very just kind of perplexing.
Well, one thing to keep in mind, if whether it works or not, Chris
Mhm.
Paul he can always just serve the D'Angelo Russell role, and that is they're simply holding this player and his salary that they can use in the trade later on.
That's true. I haven't considered that. But before we continue, Bosch, I'd like to introduce our special guest. He's a little late, but nevertheless, he's still here. He is a royal guest from the podcasting realm. He is 1/3 of Young Kings Wrestling Podcast. He is the thespian TC Fontaine, aka TCF baby. Please say the
Hey,
baby.
yes.
What's up,
Yo, what up,
TC?
TC?
Thanks for joining us, man.
What's going on? I'm glad to be back on here. Sorry I'm late.
It's all right. It's all right.
Stuff
No, you're
happens.
good. You just ruined my rep, man, because everybody who knows me has been listening to this podcast. They're wondering why I'm always on time. I thought I would be the one dropping in late and I could preserve my rep as someone who always shows up late. And here you are, you blew up my spot, man. I'm on time and you're the one getting the drop in later. So
Nah,
Hey
but
man, where am I at? Where am I
okay.
at?
All right, so we'll catch you up. So we already talked about the finals and stuff. We talked about the Bradley Beal trade to Phoenix. So you can give your thoughts on that quickly, and then we're wrapping up the Golden State CP3 trade. So since we're talking about that now, let's jump back to that and talk about the CP3 trade as we can see right here on the screen. What are your thoughts about this Chris Paul to Golden State trade?
It it caught me off guard because like Chris Paul just got traded like 2 days before this. And
Yes.
so, I'm thinking the whole time, like, they're linking him to the Lakers. I thought that back, when he got waived from Phoenix. I'm like, man, he's about to come to the Lakers. And I don't want that to happen. I didn't want that to happen. I'm about 12 years overdue from when I wanted
I
it
was
to
gonna say
happen. So,
the time it should have happened was a long time ago. That time
right.
is gone.
Yeah, so time's passed, but this one is strange to me, man. So I'm not really seeing like how CP will work. Now they're talking about he's probably going to be starting. I think I seen that report a couple days ago. I mean, Steph, I don't really know about moving Steph over to the 2 guard because I don't see CP3 playing the 2 guard. So, I'm a little confused on how that's going to work. Jordan Poole, though, like, works out well for him. He got his ring. He's good. He doesn't have a legacy to continue building or anything
He's
like
gonna
that.
have so much fun in Washington, bro, shooting any shot he wants.
He got the bag too. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
He got the bag.
Yeah, he got the bag already. So he got the bag. He got his ring. He can go to Washington. It's a great city. It's a great nightlife. We know, the rumors about Jordan Poole. So
No, he's gonna love Washington, man. He's gonna love it.
He's gonna love it. There's no
Are the
pressure to
honeys in
succeed.
Washington? Are the honeys at Washington so he can ball out? That's my
Dude,
question.
in Washington is known for its nightlife. He is going to have a great time.
All right.
Just go ask any Wizards fan about John Wall and how much he contributed to the economy just off the nightlife alone.
He's gonna, like you said, he's gonna have a time of his life living it up, and he's gonna be living it up on the court because again, he can do anything he wants on this team that's tanking. They're not gonna care how many. He can be 30-point per game scorer if he's trying to be like it's.
Absolutely.
He's gonna have a lot of fun out there, and like you said, he's got his ring already, so that works out well for him, man.
Yeah. So before you hopped on here, me and Bosch were going back and forth. He was saying that Chris Paul is definitely starting because you don't have the caliber of a Chris Paul kind of guy. You don't trade for him and not actually have him start. And I said, I think that doesn't make sense. What would be your lineup? Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Clay,
Sense
Wiggins,
isn't gonna
and then
matter, is what I'm
Draymond.
saying, man. They're gonna be like, "This is Chris Paul. You can start. Here you go."
So I'm against the spectrum. And you were like, "Oh, I wonder what the line would be on that." I said, let's put some money on that. I'd be down to put some of my hard-earned cash and see who do we believe is going to start. Like, is he starting? Is he coming off the bench?
I throw my hard-earned $20 down, no problem.
$20? Well, I'll put down $20.
I mean, like according to like Mark Spears from ESPN, they're saying Chris Paul starting, Kevon Looney's possibly coming off the bench. So. I mean, they're gonna see how it works out. I can definitely feel like if they're gonna try to keep CP3. I know Mike Dunleavy said something about like looking to, keep him for a playoff push or whatever the case may be. If that's the case, then I feel like at some point he's probably gonna have to start coming off the bench
at some point
mid-season for them to really have a chance if that's really what they want to do. Because running into you got the Lakers still out there, you got AD. Terrorize Golden State, and CP3 doesn't help that at all.
No, he ain't guarding. He ain't got guarding the brow. Well, I mean, look, Mike Dunleavy Jr. also said that we're looking to keep Jordan Poole for another 4 more years till his contract is
up. That's what before you hopped on.
Cap going on already.
Yeah.
No, that's what I just said. Is they could always use Chris Paul like they use D'Angelo Russell. Like they're just holding that salary spot. You know what I'm saying? And they can make a trade later down the line because he's got a $30 million salary that they can use to acquire somebody else if they want to.
That's true. I'll say this. If they haven't traded Chris Paul by the trade deadline, he's going to be coming off the bench in the playoffs. If not by the end of the season.
I'm not going to put money on because, I kind of think that if he's there through the whole season, at some point, like TC said, at some point, you're going to have to make that transition. For now, I definitely think like they're going to start him, in my opinion, and they're going to have him play 4 or 5 minutes in the first quarter, go sit down, and then come back on once Steph goes to the bench.
All right, fair enough.
Or once Draymond goes to the bench, they'll bring him back on and kind of be the point guard in that case, moving Steph off the ball.
I think if he doesn't come off the bench from opening night, he's going to come off the bench by the end of the first month. I think it's going to be that. I don't even think it's going to take that long. I think it's going to be like the first week. They're going to be like, yeah, no, come off the bench, bro. What about you, TC? Like, like you leaning in with the reports, thinking he's going to start?
I feel like you got to have him start early on. Let them find out the hard way that it's not going to work out.
Yep. I even mentioned they may wait.
Take as much time as you need, to be honest.
Right. Well, they may wait for Chris Paul himself to be like, yo, this isn't really working. It might be better for me to come off the bench. You know what I mean? And then that'll give him the cover to be like, oh, okay, Chris Paul came to us and, said, go ahead and make this move.
Crazy. They traded Chris Paul straight to his ops. Never seen that.
That's the funny part about it.
All right, so speaking of getting the bag, we talked about it already, but I want to get your opinion on it. Bradley Beal, the biggest bag chaser, and kudos to that man. He got paid. He got the biggest contract he possibly could from the Washington Wizards, not once, but at least twice, 3 times maybe. And got a no trade clause. Got traded to his preferred destination, even though I don't think it 100% mixes. And they didn't give up shit to get him. What are your thoughts on Bradley Beal being the Phoenix Sun, and who's the point guard here?
Got to be Devin Booker. First off, my thoughts on Bradley Beal. One, they say his agent is like a family member of, an executive in the Suns front office. So I don't necessarily see how that is in collusion, but that's not my job. It's whatever. They don't move me regardless. So that's why it doesn't really matter to me. There's really no depth outside of their starting 5. I'm seeing they're just having free agent tryouts like now. So they're just trying to figure out who can fit at the cheapest price. It's a lot of money going around the dev Ayton and Bill alone. No idea how much KD's making, but I can guarantee it's kind of up there too.
Yeah, he had a max
Yeah, I
contract.
think
All that money's tied up right there. So how are you really going to fill the team out?
No,
That's the
you
biggest
just
question.
and you don't with the new salary cap too. Once you're so if for anybody listening who doesn't know
What's
the
James Jones doing?
yeah, well, like the salary cap limit, so is not like a hard cap, meaning you can go above it for certain situations, like re-signing your own players. And you can do that via a trade, and so there's different apron cutoffs they have, and there used to be just one apron. So if you go above the salary cap, there's a certain level before you hit luxury tax, where you're charged an extra dollar amount for every dollar you're over this amount, right? And now with the new CBA, the new collective bargaining agreement that they just agreed to this year that goes into effect now, they introduced a second apron. So there's two different cutoffs. And what happens is if you're above the first cutoff, you are no like you're limited in what you can do. You're into the luxury tax. You instead of having a full mid-level exception, which is what teams over the salary cap but under the luxury tax get, you get a full mid-level exception like the Bulls. It's about like 12, 13 mil a year that you can use to offer to one player. If you're above that apron, you get the first apron, you get the luxury tax, the luxury salary cap, and that's the tax team tax team mid-level exception is like half that. It's like 5 or 6 mil a year. So you already lost out like that extra contract. The Suns, I think, are going to be over the second apron, which means you can't give any mid-level exception. You don't get
no.
that. You're limited in trades. You're limited in the sort of like money you can take back in trades. There's a lot of restrictions that are going in the second. If you're above that second apron cutoff level, which I believe Phoenix will be with 3 dudes making max level money on their team, plus
Yeah.
Ayton, who makes like 30 mil a year.
Yeah,
So
easy.
they're not going to be able to sign anybody except for minimum contracts.
They're going to be signing dudes from their local YMCA is what they're going to be doing.
Yeah,
Dude,
man.
they're going to look for anybody who was maybe out of the NBA and is trying to come back in and kind of see if they can take a flyer on that sort of guy and give him a contract. Maybe look for somebody. I don't know what's going to happen with Miles Bridges in Charlotte. Like, they technically have his restricted rights, but if they think it's a PR hit for keeping him, maybe Miles Bridges is like, oh, I'll sign for the minimum in Phoenix for a year and then build my value back up or something. I don't know. That's like their best hope, because otherwise you're signing guys like TJ Warren was last year for Brooklyn and then eventually Phoenix, where it's a dude coming off multiple injuries, hasn't played for a while, and you're just going to take a flyer and hope he can, show that he still belongs in the league.
Maybe they can offer something to Taiwan's biggest basketball star free agent this summer.
Yeah.
If not,
that's desperation right there.
If not, hey, you know what?
Because like all love to Dwight, but he cannot play.
He can play in Taiwan, man. He's having fun out there. Let's not bring him back and make him miserable over here. Let him have fun in Taiwan.
If not,
I mean,
you know
if
what?
all else fails for the Suns, they can wait till NFL preseason. They trim their rosters out. Grab some people from the Cardinals, possibly. That
Just
might
find the
have
biggest
to,
dude and be like, "Yo, can you set some screens and grab some
right.
rebounds?"
That's it. Just that. I mean, hey, Joe Johnson, you left
I
before
was
they could win the championship.
about to bring up the big three. I'm like, let's see what's going
Go
on
look
with
at the big
three.
three roster. Bring in the big ticket Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett to play with Kevin Durant. All right, moving on to the next big trade that the Washington Wizards made. They were busy. We got a 3-team trade. This initially fell apart because it was going to include the LA Clippers and the Celtics sending why am I trying to blank on his name? Malcolm Brogdon over to the Clippers, but I guess it was some concerns.
That would have been shameful.
So what?
That would have been shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jerry West helping the Clippers out.
That
wouldn't have been good with me.
No.
So I'm glad it fell through.
So the trade gets restructured to include the Memphis Grizzlies. So let's break down the details, and we'll start with the Boston Celtics. They receive Kristaps Porzingis via the Wizards. He opts into the final year of his contract. The 25th pick in this year's draft via the Grizzlies. I'm not exactly sure who they picked up. I'll look at it right now while you guys discuss it. The 2024 first round pick, it's top 4 protected, and that's coming from the Warriors. So that's not necessarily the best pick, but it's probably going to conceive. Then the Wizards get Tyus Jones via the Grizzlies, Danilo Gallinari from the Celtics, who didn't play a lick of minutes.
Yeah, he tore his ACL in international ball right before, after he'd signed a free agent contract with Boston over Chicago, and
Yeah.
then tore his ACL, unfortunately for him.
That's what you get for sending with Boston. Fuck Boston,
Aw,
man.
man, I feel bad. The dude, hopefully he can come back and actually be productive.
Yeah,
But
maybe he'll come play for the Bulls like he should have.
yeah, exactly.
Mike Muscala as well via the Boston Celtics. The number 35 pick in the 2023
This year's
draft.
draft, which eventually the Bulls traded for.
Yeah, eventually, and the Bulls ended up getting for multiple second round picks. And the big one here for me, I'm surprised here. They got rid of Marcus Smart and sent him over to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Dude, who should have been like a lifelong Celtic, honestly. Like, it helped me hate that team even more with him on there. It made it very easy to hate them as he flopped all over the court. And it definitely is, like, that's why the previous trade with the Clippers involved was definitely better for Boston, because they were, keeping Smart and giving up Malcolm Brogdon, and then they would still add Kristaps. But you kind of see why Boston did this. They're getting 2 first-round picks, man. Like, basically, they got so much positive value for Marcus Smart. They got Porzingis and 2 first-round picks out of it. That's a pretty good deal for them.
Yeah, that 25th pick ended up going to the Pistons. Actually, they took Marcus Sasser. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really care about like the late lottery. We'll talk about later. But the big movers here, like I said, was Marcus Smart going to Memphis. I think he kind of fits the grit and grind.
He's
Memphis
perfect for them.
Style.
He's perfect for them. They give up Dylan Brooks, and you got a much smarter, no pun intended, Dylan Brooks now to replace him. Somebody who won't, have the same level of turnovers, who does take some dumb shots, but not like as many as Brooks does, and it kind of hits more of them. Smart has hit, clutch jumpers for Boston throughout multiple playoff runs. He's been to many conference final game 7s and NBA finals. He's somebody who can run point guard while Ja is suspended to start the season.
Speaking of Ja, Marcus Smart is going to be the main dude over here slapping Ja in the back of his head every time he does something stupid or he's about to do something.
And that's why I love this move. Like, it's a step in the right direction. Like, he's not the end all be all OG in the locker room, but it's a step in the right direction. Of course he can run the point as Ja's out, but like, he has that experience. He has that level of maturity. He's been in so many locker rooms. He's played for a storied franchise. It was hard to say that
with a straight face, right?
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but it's true. But
yeah. So, like, all that considered, they needed somebody out of Memphis, and I was actually calling for like Draymond Green the whole entire season. I just knew he was out of Golden State, but I guess that's not the case. But they needed like a vet or OG down there in Memphis to just kind of knock some heads straight. Like, there was no who was the main OG in the locker room? Danny Green. Before that,
I guess you could say Steven Adams, but it seems like Steven Adams is more there.
He's not that guy either. Like, he's never had to be a leader on any team. No offense to Steven Adams and all.
No, he's there to have like his teammates back more than.
Yeah, he's the enforcer. He's not the leader.
He's the enforcer.
He's not going to lead the locker room. I definitely can give that to Marcus Smart to kind of play that role of a locker room leader a lot more than anybody else has been in that locker room since this core has been together. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit in Memphis, just like you just said, TC. And the Wizards, I think, made out, it's kind of weird that they gave up, quote unquote, probably the best player just based on talent, in Porzingis, who had like a fringe borderline all-star year last year that was overlooked because he was playing for Washington. But they gave that up and didn't really get didn't get a first round pick. That's interesting. But Tyus Jones is cool because that gives them a bunch of point guards now that are interesting to other teams. I bet out of that group of, who's it, Monte Morris, Tyus Jones, and there's like one other point guard they have. One of those guys will be, if not more, will be like wanted by other teams around the league. Teams like the Bulls.
There's going to be a competition in Washington as to who's going to be the starting point guard.
And Tyus Jones is a really good point guard, man. Like, if you have him on that team, that's a guy like kind of offsets the kind of like dumb decision making of Jordan Poole with somebody who's a really good decision maker and kind of like floor general on the floor for the times that he came off the bench or even played when Ja didn't play. Remember, Memphis kept winning all the time. Tyus Jones has been very good, so now he gets a chance to prove it and be a starting point guard.
100% for sure. I agree with that. I will counter to that point by saying I think Kristaps Porzingis was gone anyways. I think he was gonna opt out of his contract and sign with whoever he wanted to sign and not come back to Washington because I don't think Washington was gonna give him
Well, if they
big
didn't
contract he
make the
wanted.
Beal trade, then they probably would have kept him.
Yeah. I'm speaking after
Once they made the Beal trade.
Once they
right.
made the Beal trade, I don't think they were gonna keep him
Right.
and give him that contract. And from there, at least they got something for him,
Yeah.
And it came out of nothing. So, in terms of the Boston Celtics, this is a little interesting here because they get a first round pick out of this for Marcus Smart. And they get Kristaps Porzingis.
That 2024 pick, next year's Warriors pick, is a real first round pick. Like you said, it's only top 4 protected, so it's likely to convey. The Warriors are highly unlikely to be one of the 4 worst, lottery teams. So they get a real first round pick out of this, plus Kristaps. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good haul.
I'm just kind of curious as to what the fit would be. I don't know, TC. How do you feel about Kristaps' fit in Boston?
I'm hoping he doesn't, actually, to be honest with you. It doesn't move me. Very similar to Phoenix. So I think both of these trades happen like the same day, if not like a day apart. But neither of them really move me at all. Like this one, I just it's like every year somebody goes out of their way to help Boston do something in free agency or just before free agency, and they don't have anything to show for it but a finals appearance. They lost, and they don't have anything else to show for it outside of that. So I'm done. Like I'm done playing this game with Boston. Like it's the last year for them to show me something, honestly.
Right.
And if they don't, then Jaylen Brown's a free agent next summer. I think Jason Tatum might be too, if I'm not mistaken. Or
Tatum's got a
he's
couple
next
more
year.
years. Yeah.
So Jaylen Brown is eligible for a contract extension this offseason. Then he'll be a free agent next season, next offseason.
If he doesn't get it, yeah.
Yeah, if he doesn't get it. And then Jason Tatum will be up for a contract extension for the Supermax next offseason. And then he'd be a free agent 2 off seasons from now. My biggest question here is like, okay, Porzingis kind of helps with what they need. They need more rim protection up front, and they need some shooting. He's basically gonna like replace Al Horford in the Al Horford role.
Well, he's gonna replace Grant Williams. Like you're gonna play Al Horford and him together. Like he's gonna, or you're right.
Horford's defense either, so that's another issue that they have to worry about with Porzingis.
What about Time Lord? What about Robert?
Well,
Williams?
he's had he's limited to so few games and minutes through the year, right? That's why I say I think he's like insurance for them, the way basically Grant Williams has been throughout the year, except now he's a better version of that for them, in their opinion, right? Because he's a better shooter. He's a more consistent, reliable shooter, whereas Grant Williams could be on or off, and different times, sometimes unwilling to take the 3. Now you have a guy out there who will take every 3 if he gets it, if he's open, and can spread the floor more. I think what there were a lot of reports in this through the postseason there, when they were down to Philly and then when they had their trouble with Miami, that the locker room kind of wanted to go more defensive lineups, and Mazzulla wanted more shooting on the floor, and there was kind of like a push and pull. And it looks like, Mazzulla wins out, like Brad Stevens, the GM, former coach and now GM of the Celtics, kind of backed Mazzulla here and went with, they're like, all right, we'll give you the shooting you wanted. And we've shipped Smart, who was probably the player who was most, kind of like against what Mazzulla was doing, from my opinion, from my read of like what was coming out and the way what we know about Marcus Smart, and we know about how he likes to play. Like he was probably the one in the locker room most dissatisfied with Mazzulla's coaching decisions.
My one quote that I heard that I wasn't sure how I felt about was Jaylen Brown, I think, wanted to guard Harden in that Philly series. And Joe Mazzulla's quote was that he said, well, you got to ask Marcus about that.
That's because Marcus was guarding him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Marcus did win Defensive Player of the Year, deserved or undeserved, the year previously. He is still a top perimeter defender, so I kind of get that. But yeah, I mean, you still have Derek White, and so you still have that kind of a little bit of a perimeter defender out there, and you kind of spread the floor more with more shooting. I guess that's where Boston's going. Like TC said, they're gonna have to show it. This is kind of a weird change for them to make, but I kind of understand what they want to do. It's odd because Smart fits so well with Boston for so many years, and I always thought of him like that's a lifelong Celtic. Every time his name came up in trade rumors, I never understood. I'm like, that's not happening. Like every time in previous seasons, he's been rumored in trades for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. The big question here, guys, and I'll ask both of you guys. You guys can chime in, whichever wants to go first. Is what the fuck is the answer for the Celtics at point guard? Is it Malcolm Brogdon who can't stay healthy? Is it Derek White? Like, do they make a trade for someone? We just went from one trade where they have no point guards to a trade where they have two really good point guards to another trade where they have no point guard again. so what's going on here? What's the answer?
Is Westbrook available?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is they're going to look for somebody off the heap, right, to sign at that kind of minimum or exception level money. But if they don't, then I guess you can kind of mix and match when Brogdon's healthy and you want Brogdon running the team, or if you want Derek White's perimeter defense, then you can start him in those situations.
I don't think it's perfect. I don't think any of these trades
either of those beating them over the hump.
Right.
No. I don't know.
But in the East, you can look at it and they can see like, hey, we made the finals last year. This year, we kind of just shit the bed against Miami, and they struggled against Philly, but they're like, hey, we've seen what Philly is, and Philly is soft as fuck. They don't show up. They fucking melt down, and they should have no fear of Joel Embiid, rightfully so, until Joel proves it, because what they did in that series was a fucking embarrassment. So I can see Boston being like, hey, we can play around, and we don't have any fear of these teams in the East. I don't know if I don't agree with them. Like, I think Milwaukee, depending on how their roster shakes out, is still going to give them trouble if they face them. And I think maybe Philly will reach, the Wizard and get him to give them a heart or some shit. Like, they can actually show up next time, because that was a shit show. But
I don't know, man.
But I could see why they think like all they need is to be able to spread the floor and have more shooting out there. And with Tatum and Brown and Time Lord and Horford, like they've got enough. I understand what they're going for. I don't know if I agree with it.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what the answer is here. TC, you got anything else on this trade?
What's the starting lineup going to be? Like outside of the point guard situation, like. Do you keep Horford in the lineup? Like, do you have Robert Williams in the lineup with Porzingis? Like, how do you do that?
I mean, if he's healthy, I would think you start Robert Williams, right? And you bring Horford off the bench. And then if Williams, those games, because he's not going to be healthy all the time, and when he's not, then you move Horford to center and bring Porzingis up at power forward. That's what I would do.
I say just keep testing out the starting lineups in the preseason. That's what the preseason is for. Figure out which one do you guys feel best, which one you guys are comfortable with. I think as in terms of point guard, it's got to be Brogdon or it's got to be Derek White. Or I didn't have this written down. I don't have a graphic for it, but his team option was not picked up by the New York Knicks, a free agent point guard that's being discussed. And
man, I do not want to see Derrick Rose in a.
No, I know. Hold on. Let me get to it. Damn it!
I don't want you to get to it. I want you to move right past it, bro. Drop that shit. Move on.
A player that's being linked to not only the Boston Celtics, the Phoenix Suns, who also could use some point guard help, but both our teams and TC's LA Lakers and Bosch and I's Chicago Bulls. That is, like Bosch mentioned, Derrick Rose. Before we move on to the final trade, if you had to pick here, I need two answers from you guys. I need A, where do you think Derrick will land from those four destinations? Boston, Phoenix, LA, or Chicago? And B, which one do you want to see him? It could be the same answer. It cannot. It doesn't have to be. You guys can figure that one out for yourselves.
Go
And
ahead.
then I'll
TC.
give my answers last.
Probably I could probably see him in Phoenix. Minimum exception. That's where people go to retire when they at the end of their career. So I can definitely see that happening, especially like I look at the lineup, like it just seems like the type of thing that's obviously not gonna work, and they can maybe get something of value out of Derrick Rose at the deadline or something. I don't know. Keep him away from the Lakers, that's all I'm saying. I might have wanted that like 2-3 years ago, but I don't want it now.
Okay, so TC
Send him back
doesn't want Chris
home.
Paul.
Like I know like Bosh doesn't want him back home, but like he can go back home too.
You know what? Come back to the Bulls. The Bulls are a shit show. They're an embarrassment. Like the Bulls suck anyway. Might as well bring him home. They're gonna suck with him. They're gonna suck without him. It doesn't matter.
You got to sell tickets some way, somehow.
That's
and
right.
Derrick Rose is gonna help you sell tickets.
You gotta have something for
You're not gonna win. Sell the
sometimes.
Tickets somehow.
I will say, if Derrick Rose does come back to Chicago, granted that I got a chance to watch him play maybe only once or twice in my lifetime. Once against LeBron and the other time against the Lakers. So it would be good to see. Personally, I do want him to come back to Chicago at some point. Granted that we don't have Lonzo Ball, we could use some guard depth. If
I don't think you have Lonzo Ball.
Here's the thing with Derrick. When he took the floor in this past year, you can see why Thibodeau moved him out of the rotation. Like, I love Derrick Rose when, in his MVP days, the fact that he made a comeback and dropped 50 with Minnesota and then actually became an important player on the Knicks playoff team. Like that's all very cool, but he doesn't have the lift. He doesn't have quite the same explosiveness. He's still fast. He's just not as first step explosive as he used to be. And he's never really developed like that shot. It's kind of come and gone in the past few years. When he entered the game at those late game situations for the Knicks in this past season, even against the Bulls, it didn't look great. I don't know how much he's got left. If he comes back to the Bulls, I'm good for it. Like, I don't think the Bulls are going anywhere. So whatever, man. Like, let him play. If the Bulls think he's going to be like their either starting or backup point guard, that would be disastrous. But fuck it. The Bulls make disastrous decisions anyway.
True.
If he's like, he's like what he was in New York, but playing a little bit more, right? Like third guard, basically on the Bulls. Okay. Like, I think that he could help. Again, he can kind of do what fans were asking for when they wanted Russell Westbrook when he got waived by the Lakers, in that he can penetrate the paint and kick it out. Thing is, on Chicago, who's he kicking it out to? Who's going to shoot besides Zach, right? Like,
yeah,
we've got no shooting in Chicago. So I think the most likely scenario, honestly, is for him to just re-sign on a minimum deal with New York and go back and stay with Thibodeau and continue to mentor the guys that he built a relationship with. I wouldn't mind it if he came back to Chicago. I don't think he's the answer for any of these teams with depth issues like Phoenix or Boston, because I don't think he can play starters minutes, and I don't think he can. I'm not sure how much he can contribute on a playoff level team. Like, I'd like to see that wrong. Maybe he's got more left in the tank than he showed, and he just was moved out of the lineup because Grimes and those guys were more defensively capable for what New York needed, and so maybe Derrick's actually got more point guard left in him. That'd be great to see. I didn't see it when he played last year.
I'm still mad to this day that I'm not sure what the situation was, if he was a free agent or if he was eligible to be traded. I'm still mad to this day that he wasn't on that Bubbles Lakers team in 2020. I thought he should have been on that team. He should have won the championship. I just want Derrick to win a championship. This is here are the answers to my questions. Where do I want him to go? Wherever team fucking has the best chance to win a championship. I don't care if he rides the fucking bench. I was rooting for T-Mac to get that championship. I was rooting for Melo to get that championship. I want D Rose to get that championship. Where I think
T-Mac,
he's gonna
man,
go,
that one hurt. But yeah.
where I think he's gonna go, I honestly I don't see the Lakers being too interested. And
it
giving
would
him
just be Russell Westbrook all over again. I mean, except
exactly.
without like the attitude issue. Like that's it. Like right. Like
And then I see Phoenix being a possibility, but I don't see them having the money. Boston, if he goes to Boston, I'm fucking barfing.
yeah,
I think the most likely destination is he's probably coming to Chicago, and this is his last contract. Either 1 year left, 2 years left, and he's calling it a career.
yeah. Out of those teams you mentioned, Boston, LA, Phoenix. Yeah, I think Chicago's the most likely out of those.
Yeah.
And let him play a couple of years. Maybe he's got some point guard left in him, and the Bulls could definitely use it. And I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
The one thing I don't want to see, like you said, is I don't want to see him in a Boston uniform.
Agreed. Fuck Boston.
Look right.
Nah. Nobody looks right in the Boston uniform. Blake Griffin looks weird in a Boston Celtics uniform. I forgot he was in Boston, to be honest with y'all.
Al Horford,
is he still on the team next year? Like,
I don't think so. I have no idea.
Yeah, like for what? Like to do what? Yeah, I guess. I mean, if they got like a minimum spot open, but yeah.
All right, the final trade we're going to talk about is the one that just happened, I think, yesterday. And
John Collins is free.
It finally happened. John Collins going to the Utah Jazz. The Atlanta Hawks received the haul of Rudy Gay and the future second round pick. We were talking about the Washington Wizards not getting shit for Bradley Beal. That's starting to look a lot better. Bosch was mentioning about that second threshold in the luxury tax, which is why Atlanta did this trade, because they just couldn't afford to pay that tax. But hey, you know what? Shout out to 2K legend Rudy Gay, still getting on the team. Still getting on the team. TC, unpack this for me. Like, what was your opinion and reaction when you heard about this?
I was at the gym and I just like seen it scroll on ESPN, and I'm just like, okay. I didn't care. It didn't move me whatsoever. I mean, good for the Hawks on getting their hands off of John Collins. Like, that's probably the best thing that could come out of that. I don't know what Danny Ainge has up his sleeve. You never know.
You don't trust Danny Ainge anymore, man. Ever since he fucked over Billy King and with the Brooklyn Nets. Ever since then, I'm like, you can't trust Danny Ainge, man.
Well, like you think like
I stopped trusting them when they traded for KG. So
that too.
Like, that's the start of it.
He had Kevin McHale. I'm like, come on.
That's what I was gonna say. That's more on Kevin McHale.
Collusion.
Like that was some turncoat. Like, let me just help out Boston here.
Oh yeah,
that was collusion right there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna talk about that. That's
no. Yeah, you're right. Kevin McHale long gone.
But right now, but right now, I don't really see how. I don't see how this helps either team outside of the Hawks getting their hands off of John Collins and not having to pay that salary, not having to deal with the inconsistency of John Collins on the court too. So you kind of rid yourself of that. But like, how does it help the Jazz? I don't really know. We'll have to see. I have to see what Danny Ainge is doing.
That's what I was gonna say. I think Danny Ainge is basically just buying low on John Collins. The Jazz don't really have anything to do with their salary cap space, so he doesn't care. Like, they can spend it on whatever. He's taking a gamble that maybe they can rehab John Collins into being the next Lauri Markkanen, man. I don't know, So they're like, all right, already bought low on Lauri Markkanen, turned him into an all-star. Let's see what we can do with John Collins here.
If they're able to turn John Collins into Kenyon Martin, that's a win. If they somehow
that's the best case scenario,
he becomes Kenyon Martin for the Utah Jazz. Look at their lineup now. You have Colin Sexton.
They moved Lauri to small forward.
Yeah, well, he was already playing small forward last year. So you have Jordan Clarkson, you have Colin Sexton, you have John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler.
Yep.
They have a really good team, and they still got all these fucking draft picks from Cleveland and Minnesota to keep adding to that. So, they're doing what
he was built on that chemistry from last year. Like, nobody expecting them to be as decent as they were last year. So I definitely see them like
It's a
probably
plus.
6, 7 seed next season
Hmm.
around there. Because that's kind of where they were on the path to come in, and then like the Lakers just went crazy at the end of the season, and they kind of fell off a cliff there. So I can definitely see them getting like a lower seed in the playoffs next season, just building on that consistency. Got to account for whatever other moves they might make in the season too, which might help them push over the edge a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
uh, I'm interested in seeing what the Jazz do. I'm not really a fan of the Jazz. I don't really care about them. I've never really cared about
Hmm.
them. But I mean, good basketball is good basketball, so I can't really deny it. So I'm really willing to see how that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have good pieces in Walker Kessler and Laurie Markkinen already. Now they're looking to see what Colin Sexton can do in a fully healthy season, and they bought low on John Collins. They've got some other young players and rookies to bring in the mix. Now they may be a little bit worse because part of the reason they tanked last year after the trade deadline is because they got rid of Mike Conley, right? And
Yeah.
they had an issue at point guard after that. So they have a lot of talent, so they could definitely be in the playoff mix, like you said, TC. But without that point guard and with like kind of like a mismatch of a bit of a mismatched roster, they could also try to go for the tank, maybe flip Clarkson or Colin Sexton or somebody else to get
Yeah.
even more draft capital. But yeah, they're definitely an interesting team because of like all the picks they have coming in, the young talent they've already got, and kind of the flyers they took on guys like Collins and Sexton. So yeah, it'll be fun to see where they go. Danny Ainge, man, he's always got like the play chest, man, of all these toys he can put out on the floor and see what he wants to do.
100%. So we'll see, because they could obviously be a playoff team. They could be a board. They could be a play-in team. They could be like a tanking team if they start to blow things up. So honestly, they have so many different avenues and lanes they can choose from and explore. So their road is completely clear. So they don't even have to worry about being bad, because if they wanted to, they could just worry about those future picks that are coming up. So they have draft capital. And I don't know. We'll see. I think this is a major L for the Atlanta Hawks. You just downgrade. Say what you will about John Collins' consistency. He's the best player here. They're now replacing what he gave them. And now you just made your team worse. And I honestly believe you're going to have to make some trade with Clint Capella being involved, a DeAndre Hunter being involved, or maybe even a Trey Young or DeJounte Murray, who was traded over to them and just wasn't working out how they wanted to in the backcourts. So they're going to have to make some kind of trade. I wouldn't be surprised if they just missed the play-in
Yeah.
or just
This
like
is just a
the
money
10
saving
seed.
move for them, right? Like they
It
just shaved the
is.
luxury tax that they don't have to pay the tax, and they kind of open up some options for them, for themselves in trades and whatnot. So
Yeah. So we'll see. Let's move on. We're going to talk about the draft, and we're going to wrap things up with the draft. And it took place last week, Thursday. Number one pick was Victor Wembanyama to the San Antonio Spurs, as
what,
everyone
bro? I'm
suspected.
shocked. No one
The
saw
big
that coming.
shock here,
Yeah.
and the draft really started, guys, was at number 2 with the Charlotte Hornets taking Brandon Miller. I thought they should have taken Scoot Henderson, but the Blazers took him at number 3. There was no trade for the second pick or the third pick or even the fourth pick, as most were speculating. The number 4 pick was the Houston Rockets that took Ahmed Thompson, and the Pistons took his twin brother, Usar
Asar.
Thompson. So the Thompson twins were selected back to back, highest drafted twins to be drafted in the same draft class. Anthony Black to the Orlando Magic at 6, and so on and so forth. Washington and Indiana made a trade to swap players for Jarris Walker going to the Indiana Pacers. I can't pronounce them.
Bilal Coulibaly, Victor
Yeah,
Wembanyama's teammate.
yeah, he
Right.
ended up going
Yeah.
to Washington. Washington moved up in the draft to make sure they can snag him. So that was a nice pickup for them. Takeaways from the draft, guys. Like, are you a little bit surprised with what Charlotte and Charlotte and Portland did here? And aside from that, what would you have done if you were the Charlotte Hornets or the Portland Trailblazers? TC, we'll start with you, man.
I wasn't surprised just because like for about 2-3 days before the draft, they kind of started leaning towards Brandon Miller going second. So actually, would have surprised me if Scoop went second, um, which was kind of how I was looking at it all season long. So, but outside of that, I look at Brandon Miller as a good compliment to LaMelo Ball. Like, you got that outside scoring threat. You can build him into a quality wing. I don't know. I might be off on this. I'm not too familiar with Brandon Miller's game, but just from the looks of it, I get a little bit like a Buddy Hield kind of to me. Um, Correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong on that, but I like the way he compliments Melo just from what I see and what I've seen from him. Scoop played out here in Vegas, G League Ignite. He's gonna be good. I'm very fed up a little bit with the whole like Damian Lillard saga. So I think just Damian Lillard being there right now is actually going to be a distraction for Scoot Henderson in his rookie year. But sky's the limit once that gets resolved, if ever. But if not, damn, we're going to have to figure something out, bro. You got a lot of
Yeah.
young guys over there now. Like you're not going to do anything right now. You'll end up wasting a good 2-3 years of your career going forward, just waiting for those guys to develop. Like nobody's gonna fault you for asking out, bro. It's fine at this point. Like you don't gotta double down. Let's get you up out of there, move on, do what you gotta do. Get these young guys in there. Let Scoop take over. Let Scoop get your number. That's not gonna happen. I don't think they're gonna let that happen.
No,
But
I doubt it.
Well, to
yeah,
me,
let's let him grow a little bit, man. Like, go ahead, my bad.
no, you're good. You're good. I was just letting you finish up because I was just caught up on number two. I'm just caught up with the tragedy of the Charlotte Hornets, man. Now I'm not going to pretend to know because since the Bulls didn't have a draft pick and we all knew like who the number one pick was, and we've all seen plenty of clips and highlights of Victor Wembanyama, his like freakish size and his like insane ability to shoot and run in and pull up jumpers over smaller guards and all of that, right? So it's not like I did a ton of scouting. I didn't look at a lot of college games. So I'm not going to pretend like I know. It looks like the consensus was that Scoot Henderson was a number one level pick in any other year. And Brandon Miller was kind of the safe, wing player pick who probably does not have like the superstar upside of Scoot, but probably should have enough of a floor that he's a contributing NBA player, and then you don't have to worry about point guard overlap with LaMelo. And Charlotte went with Brandon Miller. I just want to restate again the tragedy of the Charlotte Hornets, man. Every time, this is why I can't stand the San Antonio Spurs, man. They fucking tank. They tank as bad as anybody else in the league, if not worse. And every time they do, they get the fucking number one pick. They don't have to tank for 3, 4, 5 years. They get the first pick, and they don't just get the first pick,
You get a
in some leagues.
generational talent.
They get a generational fucking talent, bro. They get a fucking Tim
Generational
Duncan.
big man.
Yeah. I mean, look at this. And every time Charlotte does it, they are shit on for being the worst franchise. Oh, so badly run. These poor motherfuckers end up with number 2 every time there's a generational talent on the board. They missed out on Anthony Davis. They missed out on Dwight Howard. Dude, they had Emeka Okafor. They had the number 2 pick when Dwight Howard was number 1. They had the number 2 pick when it was or number 2 or number 4 when Anthony Davis went
2.
number 1. Yeah, number 2 when Anthony Davis went 1. And now another generational big man in Victor Wembanyama, and they get the second pick every fucking time with this team, man. I feel like it's not enough of a story.
They're a cursed franchise.
Bro, like the curse is ridiculous. How can it happen every time that there's like a absolute like franchise changing generational center with unparalleled skills, whether it's like the big defense and rebounding of Dwight Howard or the all-around talent of Anthony Davis or the freakish like never before seen talent of Victor Wembanyama. And every time Charlotte's number 2, they've been tanking for years trying to get good picks. They never get it when there's guys available. Fucking San Antonio tanks one time, get them every time. That's ridiculous, man. I swear to God.
It's ridiculous.
Is this like the karma for Michael Jordan?
We got to take a deep dive.
But let me know, was Michael Jordan the owner when they drafted Dwight Howard for the
No,
Bobcats?
Michael Jordan was, I think, still part of the
Bob
Wizards.
Johnson. Okay.
Yeah, Bob
So
Johnson
Bob
was.
Johnson.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that still doesn't negate the point. There's a curse for Michael Jordan. Now, like Michael Jordan lost the Bobcats because he's a bad gambler. So
So
it's a
something
curse.
happened. We have to look at what has happened in the Charlotte franchise's history, because something has happened to cause like this sort of karma to play out for this long, over this many years, and in this way too, where again,
They
it's not
lost their
like,
team for a few years too.
man, it's not like they just miss out on like any old number one pick. They miss out on like the greatest number one pick of like, that time period. It's insane.
No, yeah, it's tough to be a Charlotte Hornets fan. And speaking of Charlotte Hornets fans, shout out to my friend Tyler. Love you, bro. It sucks to be you right now. Uh,
Love
but
you, we feel for you. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. All of
So
that.
going back to the other picks, right? My whole issue here is the same thing that Bosch was iterating, was that Scoot Henderson was being touted as the number one option, the number one pick in this year's draft if there was no Wembanyama.
Right.
So you take him. The ceiling,
Yeah.
the best case scenario for Brandon Miller is basically Mikal Bridges or whatever Mikal Bridges
I
is
think
ceiling.
Mikal Bridges would be like a dream ceiling for Brandon Miller,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then Scoot Henderson obviously has drawn comparisons to similar style point guards like a Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, and a John Wall. So my big issue is the fit with Portland doesn't make sense if you still have Lillard. Because what are you going to have? Scoot and Lillard starting together in the backcourt? We just having the same Chris Paul, Steph Curry issue. And then what are you going to do? Have him come off the bench? That's your number 3 pick. Like, if you're Portland, you got to ship out Lillard. You have to start off this youth movement because you have Shaden Sharp. I love Shaden Sharp. Their pick from last year, he started balling at the end of the season once they decided, yeah, we're going to tank and not go for the playoffs. So,
Yeah, Shaden Sharp looks good, man. I mean, to me, I agree. Like their best move would be to trade Damian Lillard, right? But to me, there's also a real value in a franchise, especially in a franchise like Portland. You can compare them to a Charlotte or to an Indiana or to an Atlanta, like some of those smaller franchises that have trouble drawing free agents, that don't have the financial resources of teams around the league, and because of that, you get a talent like Damian Lillard, somebody who's highlights are going to be looked at for decades from now, who's got all these beautiful, like, clutch playoff moments. Who's what did he drop? Didn't he drop like 70 points this year? Like 70,
Mm-hmm.
72, something like that? Like,
mhm.
it was insane. Anyway, if Damian Lillard says, no, I want to keep staying here, I think like there's value in that too. Like you can still continue to develop Scoot and Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons or whatever, and maybe you can figure out a way to put as much of a team around him as possible. Now you're right. It's obviously you're not going to maximize Damian Lillard while you have these young guys on. You're also not going to maximize, like, you're not going to be tanking, and so you're not going to be like, they got the third pick this year. But if you keep Damian Lillard, you're unlikely to be getting another top 3 pick, right? Like it was
Yeah.
pretty. They moved up to get this one, so like you're not maximizing that either. But you already have Scoot Henderson, you already have Shaden Sharp, you've got some talent. If Dame stays, to me, like let Dame do what he wants, and let if what he wants is to be a Blazer for life, man, there's value in that.
I don't know. I think it's
I
just
don't
it
hate it.
stunts Scoot's development as the top guy. I think they should just give him the keys already to the kingdom and just send Lillard off his way. Send him to
What if
Miami.
they trade
Both
Simons?
sides are scared, man. That's all it is. Both sides are scared. Like Portland's scared of being irrelevant after Dame. Like
Right.
they don't know how this is going to pan out, so they're scared of the own gamble that they took with their number 3 draft pick. Dame, I think, is scared of going anywhere else and failing and falling flat on his face and not being successful. He's going to wish he never left. So it's somebody got to pull the trigger on this one. Stop harassing us with the rumors and window every day. Like
I
this
think
dude,
the
it's business, man. Like we can't be emotional. And I don't think I've ever seen an instance where both sides are just like choosing emotion over the business. It's just insane to me. I mean, it's rare, it's cool, but it just doesn't help when you got a team to run and you got a bunch of guys that you develop on the team, on the roster already. It's just kind of detrimental in a way.
Yeah, the only way I'd be okay with Lillard staying is if they somehow pull off what the Phoenix Suns did, because they got DeAndre Ayton, the number 1 pick, to pair with Booker. Then they made a trade for Mikal Bridges, who was the number 10 pick. That started their core. They picked up guys that were on the end of the and out of the league almost, in guys like Campaign, or even like went and reached for guys like Cam Johnson. Made a trade for someone like a Chris Paul that fit the team, helped them elevate. Then they made a trade for a superstar type player with Kevin Durant, and now they have Bradley Beal. So if they somehow able to make a big 3 or even like a big 2 with like a decent-esque roster that allows Damian Lillard not necessarily to compete for a championship or like even win one, but just like be in the mix in the top of the Western Conference. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. The only way it's gonna happen is if you running like the trade machine in 2K, but that's the only way I'm okay with Lillard staying at this point. Like it's not good for Portland. It's not good for Lillard. It's not good for the rest of the league. It's not good for NBA fans. Just pull the Band-Aid off, you know? Yeah. All right. So and that's it for the draft stuff. Like everything, I just want to talk about the main big names. Unless you guys want to talk about the Thompson twins and them going to Houston and Detroit respectively.
I'm not even familiar with them at all, man. I'm just gonna have to watch Summer League coming up. Like, gonna have to check that out. Like, I am interested in seeing how Wemby pans out.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's hit or miss, man. Like, he's either gonna be great or everybody's concerns about injuries or how his body's gonna hold up. It's gonna be a problem, bro. Either way. So it can be a good problem, it can be a bad problem. It can be great for the Spurs, and it can just be like one of them things that just don't work out. But I don't agree with a lot of people saying like he needs to bulk up or all this stuff. Like he doesn't need to bulk up or
No, he
anything.
doesn't.
Right.
They were saying
Just
that
get
about
your body
KD.
stronger. Yeah, like just get your body stronger. That's it. Like your core, all that stuff. You're gonna be taking some hits. Dudes is gonna be trying to, be like, hey, I'm not intimidated by this he's 7'4", 7'5".
7'5", 8-foot
Yeah, like, I'm not
wingspan.
intimidated by this 7'5" rookie. Like, guarantee a lot of dudes gonna be trying to dunk on him. A lot of dudes like gonna be trying to bully him in the paint. So just get stronger down low. Get a little bit stronger up top, but not, you don't gotta bulk up too much. Like,
Yeah, I
don't
think
change up what's been working for you this entire time.
yeah, like bulking up too much, like on a body that big and tall, like basically is going to cause more wear on his knees and legs. So you don't really want that anyway. That's what led to a lot of those bigger dudes not being able to stay healthy, is their knees and lower body just gave out because you can't carry that weight around on that height. So yeah, you're right. Like, don't bulk up too much. Just kind of get stronger all around. Unfortunately, I think we're gonna have 1.5 games of Wembanyama in the preseason because it's the fucking San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do their fraud ass shit, and they're gonna, pretend like they're gonna play him. They're gonna play him for one game, half of the second game, and then we're not gonna see him again until preseason. So
You might only get him for a handful of summer
Yeah.
league. Like you already
Yeah.
said,
He's playing 5 minutes in the
Yeah.
first game of summer league, and that's it.
Yeah, bro.
They're gonna put him out there, get the photo ops and everything,
Yep.
get the highlight reel, like let him get a couple points, and they're gonna sit his ass down. Like they're
As soon
not.
as he starts
That's the
sweating, bro,
Spurs.
they're
They're
gonna
not trying
put.
to risk
Yeah.
it.
Now, going back to the whole point about adding muscle, like a good comparison that I keep seeing a lot of people was like not only Kevin Durant, but Dwight Howard when he came into the league, they were trying to like push the narrative that he should be similar to Shaq and just be posting up in the low post, adding muscle, and then he did, and then he wasn't as athletic, as agile as he was when he first started in the NBA. So don't change too much of what Wemby is. Obviously, what made him special is what brought him to the dance. Just keep your strength up to make sure you can withstand and endure some injuries. But we'll see. The last draft piece that I wanted to talk about was like there was a bit of a fucking rumor over there between our two teams, guys, where supposedly the Lakers were going to send the 17th pick to the Chicago Bulls, in exchange for like Caruso. And
I could see that, man, because Cam Whitmore kept
Yeah.
dropping, and Caruso, like that's somebody who's got value for any contending team around the league, especially LA, who's pretty familiar with him.
yeah, I wouldn't be, if we do trade Caruso, the only team in the world that I would want him to be traded to would be the Lakers. That's the only two teams. Either I want him to be a Laker or I want him to be a Bull, no in between.
I wouldn't even mind AC back. It's really just like I don't see how he fits right now with this team. If D'Lo gets let go, then that's a different story. But they bring D'Lo back, then I definitely don't see it. Uh, Reeves is honestly better than Caruso is, like not
Oh,
necessarily
definitely.
defensively, but everything else, like he does so much better. So that's an upgrade on our end. Like I loved AC. It was great for us during that bubble run. Um, I don't really see it, man.
The
I don't
Lakers
know where
main
it'll go, honestly.
the Lakers main priority should be locking up Austin Reeves.
Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura,
Yeah.
get those two guys back. Like, make sure you get in Vanderbilt. Take care of all those guys in July.
They picked up
AD's
his team
eligible for
option.
an extension. Yeah, I saw that too. So
So
that's great.
so
Just get AD. Make sure you extend him because who knows what that's gonna be like. So
I don't know, man. If
you don't
you
want to lose
extend
him for nothing next summer because you might lose LeBron for nothing next summer.
wherever Bronny goes, Bron is following. Unless he retires in
Yeah,
the offseason like he was saying he was going to.
that was cap.
Yeah, that was just him, man, frustrated after a long season, a very hard fought, playoffs, and he was just venting a bit. He was like, all he said was, "Yeah, man, he just again, he's coming off a loss in a series in which they got swept, but they were close. He fought to the end of 3 out of the 4 games." So it was just him being like, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it because it's just the timing of it, man. That wasn't him
Yeah.
like actually thinking. Like, come on, dude. That was some ridiculous ass. I hate the news cycle sometimes, man. It's such bullshit."
I'm with you. All right. No, I'm not sure if I was going to bring this up on this episode, but I say fuck it. It was announced today Nikola Vucevic agreed to a 3-year contract extension with the Chicago Bulls. Details of the contract was not given, aside from the fact that it's $60 million for 3 years. We don't know how much is guaranteed, how much is like if there's is there a player option in there, is there a team option in there for the 3rd year, what the annual salary is going to look like. But Vucevic is coming back. It felt like a foregone conclusion and a no-brainer that they had to bring him back, given that if he comes off the books, that 20 million isn't going to be free money that they can spend in free agency. They're still going to be over the cap, and they're not going to be able to spend that money elsewhere. So the best case scenario is for you to go over the cap, bring back Vooch, sign them to a 2 or 3 year contract at a reasonable rate, which 20 million isn't too far gone, I guess. And then either keep him for the long haul or trade him as an asset a year from now, or even at the trade deadline if it doesn't work out. Patrick
Man,
Beverly says run it back, so I don't know. What do
man,
you?
I mean, Vooch is a good player. He's misused a bit sometimes in Chicago. The roster fit is kind of weird with DeMar occupying the same space Vooch should, and Vucevic not actually being able to kind of make use of his like ball distribution kind of skills, his passing ability when there's other multiple ball dominant players on the team with him. It's just if you were going to give him 20 mil a year, then I thought that would have been a 2-year contract. I was kind of hoping on a 3-year contract you could get that down to maybe, I mean, ideally 15, 16, but at least 17, 18. I guess this is only a couple mil off of that, so whatever. My thing here is, look, the Bulls, you brought back Vucevic. Fine. You're not going to trade. That means you're not blowing it up. You're not trading Zach. That makes no sense if you're trading Zach to bring back Vucevic on a 3-year, $20 million a year deal. Hopefully you trade DeMar because that trio didn't work together. Maybe they just figure they're going to run this year out with DeMar and then work on that next year. We'll see. But to me, the question now is, all right, you did this. You didn't add shooting in the draft. You didn't decide to tear down the team, by trading Zach to Portland or Philly or wherever. So if you're going to do this, then fucking do it. You're Chicago. You're goddamn Chicago Bulls, right? You're a global fucking brand 6 fucking titles that you like to talk about that happened 25 fucking years ago that none of you motherfuckers in the offices now had anything to do with, unless you go dig up John Paxson's office in whatever fucking basement he's at in the United Center. This is ridiculous. You better spend the full mid-level exception. That's about $12.5 million a year. You can go out now. I don't know. Bruce Brown might be out of that contract range. I think he might get offered 16 mil by somebody. He was in Denver on their taxpayer mid-level contract this past year. But first thing you do, go offer Bruce Brown the full mid-level exception. After that, I don't know, Max Strus, something. But I don't want to fucking see Goran fucking Dragic and Andre Drummond dragged out on this fucking team, and you tell me that you fucking improve the depth and veteran leadership. That is just total crap, man. Go and fucking fling fucking monkey shit at the goddamn United Center if they said that shit, man. Swear to God, these people deserve to have fucking rotten tomatoes thrown at them every time they're seen in public here. So you brought this team back. You re-signed, the center because you thought it was a good deal for you, where you gave up, your former number 7 pick plus 2 more lottery picks and took on a bad contract in exchange. All right. You want to prove it's a good deal. You want to bring this team back and you want to compete. Spend the fucking money. You are under the luxury tax. You have available to you the full mid-level exception. That's a really good tool for a team that's, full up on talent to be able to offer a $12.5 million contract going out 3 to 4 years per year, a 12.5 per year. So go and offer that. Don't fucking come back to me with a fucking 2-year deal, $2.5 million deal for Goran Dragic and Andre Drummond and shit.
They're going to give the mid-level to Derrick Rose. That's what they're going to do.
No, man. That's what the biannual exception is for. All right. You get the who they spent on Tristan Thompson 2 years ago, right? Well, that was 2 years ago. That's biannual. So that means now bi fucking annual. Someone should write that on a fucking poster board and put it up in front of the UC so they actually know what this means. Spend that fucking money. You should spend the $12.5 million mid-level exception and the biannual exception, which I think is under the tax pyramid. So about $4 million a year. You should be able to add both of those contracts. Derrick Rose should be on a minimum. If anything, it should be the biannual exception. That mid-level exception shouldn't be broken up. Remember when I said they should have signed Isaiah Hartenstein? Mm-hmm. Like, think about how much better this team would fit with that sort of player, on that contract right now.
I want a Mo Bamba, man, but doesn't.
You can get Mo Bamba now. You can get his ass now.
Mo Bamba for Alex Caruso.
No, fuck no.
No, I ain't doing that one. TC, thoughts on Vooch just re-signing with the Bulls for 3 years?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have any.
It's all right.
I muted myself there, but my laughter should have come through right there. That was great. Thanks.
Man, what was funny about this whole thing is like TC's used to this kind of like energy, but he's usually used to it from his co-host Reek. Reek's usually the one going on the little rants. I have my own Reek in Basharat here. He goes on his fucking rants, but we'll talk more Bulls later. I think this is a perfect time to wrap things up then, TC, thank you for joining us. And we appreciate you making any sort of appearance on the Straight Talk podcast, period.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Love talking hoops with you, man. Go ahead and plug your stuff, plug Young Kings Wrestling, everything else in between.
Yeah, man, I'm here on assignment for Vegas Sports Connect. So check out your source for everything sports in Sin City. We call it Win City now because, we got 2 championships under our belt. Had 0 before last fall. So we got 2. We got the Aces, we got the Golden Knights. So it's Win City for the time being until, football starts back up and, it's probably going to shut down at that point. That's neither here nor there. If you know, though. But check us out at Vegas Sports Connect on Instagram, on YouTube. Still building that up. But in the meantime, man, check out Young Kings Wrestling. Every Monday, it's a new episode. So subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, whatever other platforms you listen to podcasts on. We are probably on there. So go and check that out weekly. A different take on wrestling content, man. So it's everybody do their own thing. So we do our own thing too. So it's fun. We have fun. It's a little R-rated, not crazy. It's a lot of profanity. So if you can bear with that, check it out. It's fun. It's
Definitely.
good stuff. YKWrestling.com is everything is there. Merch, platforms, YouTube, all that good stuff. Check out the link tree.
For sure, for sure. We'll plug all that in the episode details down below. So
Yeah,
if
and I
you,
always see you guys dropping episodes regularly. So yeah,
yeah,
you guys stay
yeah,
consistent.
weekly stuff. Find out who the peasant of the week was that week. You know, and all the stuff. Maybe Rico's on the rant. They talk about
Had two
wrestling.
of them. We had two this past week, episode 200. So we had two peasant of the weeks who just happened to be the people that were sitting on the screen with me. So, spoiler alert.
All right. Well, congrats to TC and everyone over at Young Kids Wrestling for having 200 episodes. There's going to be a 300 episode for the Smack Raw podcast, so go ahead and check that out. I'll be on there as well. TC might make an appearance. We talk wrestling there, but Bosh, plug everything for Shy Care, man.
Of course, as always, we had the migrant crisis in addition to our homeless population out there that's been on the streets of Chicago. So check out ShyCare at chi-care.org, shy-care. Search up ShyCare on Instagram. You'll see all the videos, people, all the different opportunities to volunteer. There's a regular Thursday set up at one of the Blue Line stations out here. We've been going out to the police precincts, and now they've been moved to other areas as well for the migrants that people from other states keep busing into Chicago and just dropping without any kind of guidance or any resources, just dropping them off into the city. So you can come out with us, come out, sign up for a route, and either deliver food to the homeless where they live, not making them come out to a spot, taking it to the different tent cities and setups that they've got wherever they are in the city. We've got a whole spreadsheet with different locations. You can volunteer your time. There, you can volunteer your time at the warehouse to help pack food or clothing and supplies or toiletries and that kind of thing, or you can donate. Or you can just check out the videos and get some inspiration, maybe spread the word.
For sure, for sure. We always have that available in the description of every single episode, whether Bosch is on it or not. Like I mentioned at the top of the episode, you can find the Straight Talk podcast wherever audio podcasts can be found. Just go ahead and search up SESvince, or just go over to my Twitter and Instagram at SESvince. Hit the link tree in the bio. We'll take you to everything Straight Talk, all the Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, the works. Go over to youtube.com/SESvince. Subscribe over there. We're going to be doing more video content as well, so we're trying to build up that as well. 2 episodes away, 2 more until episode 50, and then from there we're gonna see how the season finale goes or series finale goes, and kind of go from there. Might have some moving and shakers going, but yeah, we got some big things happening. Like MVP says, big things popping, little things stopping. So next time, see you guys for the Straight Talk podcast. Later, y'all.
Peace.